In most historical accounts, infrastructure follows population. Cities grow, demand increases, and engineers respond by building water systems to serve existing communities. That's the accepted sequence: need, then solution. But in Philadelphia, the Fairmount Water Works began construction in 1812, when the city's population was barely 54,000. The system was designed to pump 3 million gallons daily. By 1815, it was operational. The city wouldn't reach a population requiring that capacity until the 1830s, nearly 2 decades later. The pattern appears in Cincinnati. The Miami and Erie Canal started in 1825, carving 274 miles through Ohio wilderness. Construction began in regions with fewer than 8 people per square mile. The canal was completed in sections between 1827 and 1845, with massive aqueducts and reservoir systems built into areas that were, at the time, functionally uninhabited. Louisville built its water system in 1860, engineered for 100,000 residents. The city had 68,000. Richmond, Virginia, installed a citywide water distribution network in 1830 for a population of 16,000, but the infrastructure could serve triple that number. This isn't efficiency. This is anticipation. Before we go further, this is not a conspiracy documentary. We're examining infrastructure chronology using public records, city archives, and engineering reports. No hidden knowledge. No suppressed documents. Just patterns in the historical record that don't align neatly with the official narrative of organic urban growth. The standard explanation holds that these were ambitious municipal projects by forward-thinking city planners. Civic leaders, inspired by European models, invested in large-scale public works to attract future growth. It's a reasonable interpretation, supported by city council minutes and funding records. But the scale creates friction. Take the Croton Aqueduct in New York. Construction began in 1837. The system was designed to deliver 90 million gallons of water per day to a city of approximately 300,000 people. That's 300 gallons per person, per day. For context, modern New York uses about 120 gallons per capita. The Croton system was engineered for a population 3 times larger than the one it served. The aqueduct included a receiving reservoir in what is now Central Park, a 35-acre, 1.8 billion gallon holding tank. The distributing reservoir at 42nd Street held another 20 million gallons. Both were completed by 1842. The city's population in 1840, 312,000. The infrastructure was designed for nearly 1 million. It gets more specific in Chicago. The city reversed the flow of the Chicago River in 1900, an engineering project so massive it's still considered one of the greatest civil works in American history. But preliminary canal systems were already in place by 1848, the Illinois and Michigan Canal, which connected the Great Lakes to the Mississippi River. In 1848, Chicago's population was 20,000. The canal system was built to handle industrial shipping volumes equivalent to cities 10 times that size. Locks, pump stations, feeder canals, all constructed between 1836 and 1848, in a region that was still largely prairie. The Chicago Sanitary and Ship Canal, completed in 1900, included a treatment and flow control system designed for 2 million residents. Chicago's population in 1900 was 1.7 million, but the growth curve wouldn't reach 2 million until 1910. These aren't estimates with margins for error. These are concrete structures, built to specifications, with documented capacities that exceed contemporaneous need by decades. Boston's Cochituate Aqueduct opened in 1848, delivering 7 million gallons daily to a city of 138,000. That's over 50 gallons per person per day, far beyond the 10 to 15 gallons typical of mid-19th century urban consumption. The system included Lake Cochituate, a purpose-built reservoir 17 miles west of the city, with gravity-fed distribution mains running through Brookline and Roxbury. The lake was engineered with overflow channels and gatehouse systems sized for future expansion. Baltimore's water system, operational by 1854, drew from the Jones Falls and included the Hamden Reservoir, capacity 40 million gallons. City population, 169,000. The distribution network covered neighborhoods that were still farmland. The timeline tightens further when you examine smaller cities. Rochester, New York, completed the Hemlock Lake water system in 1876, designed for 100,000 people. Rochester's population in 1875, 62,000. St. Paul, Minnesota, installed a citywide water network in 1882, engineered for 150,000 residents. Actual population, 41,000. Portland, Oregon, built the Bull Run system in 1895, with a capacity to serve 300,000. The city had 46,000 people. Each of these systems required years of planning and construction. Reservoirs had to be surveyed, routes mapped, tunnels blasted through bedrock. These weren't simple wooden aqueducts. They were stone and brick infrastructures, with valve houses, gatehouses, and distribution grids. And they appear across the United States, across the United Kingdom, across continental Europe, in the same narrow window of time. Between 1810 and 1860, more than 40 American cities installed water systems scaled for populations they wouldn't reach until the 20th century. The timing raises questions. So does the consistency. Because when you compare the designs, Philadelphia to London, Chicago to Paris, the systems share architectural features that don't appear in earlier or later periods. Specific features. Repeating motifs. And in some cases, nearly identical engineering specs. Construction began in 1817. The canal would eventually stretch 363 miles from Albany to Buffalo, cutting through wilderness, swamp, and forest. It required 83 locks, 18 aqueducts, and a continuous water supply system fed by lateral canals and reservoirs. When construction started, the population density along the proposed route averaged 4 people per square mile. The villages that existed, Rome, Syracuse, Rochester, were small trading posts with populations under 5,000. The canal was designed to move 200-ton freight barges. The locks were built 90 feet long and 15 feet wide. The channel was dug 40 feet wide and 4 feet deep for the entire length. This wasn't experimental. The specifications were exact, standardized, and implemented uniformly across 363 miles. By 1825, the canal was complete. The population along the route hadn't changed significantly. But within 10 years, cities appeared. Rochester's population jumped from 5,000 in 1825 to 20,000 by 1834. Syracuse grew from 3,000 to 11,000 in the same period. The infrastructure preceded the demand by a decade. The same sequence appears in Britain. The Bridgewater Canal, completed in 1761, was built to transport coal from the Duke of Bridgewater's mines in Worsley to Manchester. But the canal's capacity was engineered for industrial throughput far exceeding the output of the mines at the time. The canal system included underground extensions into the mines themselves, nearly 50 miles of navigable subterranean channels, with ventilation shafts, drainage systems, and boat lifts. The mines in 1761 produced roughly 80,000 tons of coal annually. The canal was designed to handle 400,000 tons. Manchester's population in 1760, 17,000. By 1800, it was 90,000. The Bridgewater Canal became the artery for the entire industrial expansion of northwest England. But it was built before the expansion began. The pattern repeats across the British canal network. Between 1760 and 1820, over 4,000 miles of canals were constructed. The majority were built in regions with minimal population and no immediate industrial base. The Thames and Severn Canal, completed in 1789, included the Sapperton Tunnel, a 17-mile underground passage carved through solid limestone. The tunnel alone took 5 years to complete and required engineering precision that rivaled anything built in the Roman Empire. The canal connected the River Thames to the River Severn, linking London to Bristol. But in 1789, the freight traffic between the two cities didn't justify the construction. The canal was used at less than 30% capacity for the first 15 years. Then the traffic came. By 1810, the canal was operating at full capacity. By 1820, it was insufficient. The Kennet and Avon Canal, opened in 1810, crossed 87 miles from Reading to Bristol. It included the Cairn Hill locks, a flight of 29 locks in just over 2 miles, one of the most complex lock systems ever built. The locks required side ponds to conserve water, each one engineered with precision stonework and iron fittings. The population of the towns along the route in 1810 couldn't sustain the trade volume the canal was designed for. But within 20 years, those towns became industrial centers. The infrastructure came first. The cities followed. In the United States, the same thing happened with rail. The Baltimore and Ohio Railroad began construction in 1828. The line was designed to connect Baltimore to the Ohio River, a distance of over 380 miles through the Appalachian Mountains. In 1828, Baltimore's population was 62,000. There were no significant settlements along the proposed route. The western terminus, Wheeling, Virginia, had fewer than 5,000 residents. The railroad was completed in 1853. The engineering required 113 stone bridges, 11 major iron truss bridges, and multiple tunnels blasted through solid rock. The Kingwood Tunnel alone was 4,100 feet long, requiring 6 years of drilling. The rail line was built for freight and passenger volumes that didn't exist in 1853. But by 1860, the B&O was operating at capacity. The Pennsylvania Railroad, chartered in 1846, was designed to move freight across the state from Philadelphia to Pittsburgh. The route crossed the Allegheny Mountains, requiring the construction of the horseshoe curve, a feat of civil engineering that allowed trains to gain elevation through a 220-degree turn. The curve was completed in 1854. The surrounding area was uninhabited. But the curve was engineered for double-track capacity, with stone retaining walls and graded embankments that could support continuous heavy freight traffic. In 1854, there was no continuous heavy freight traffic. By 1870, the Pennsylvania Railroad was the largest corporation in the world. The same pattern appears in grain storage. Between 1840 and 1860, massive grain elevators were constructed in Buffalo, Chicago, and Milwaukee. These weren't small wooden silos. They were multi-story stone and brick structures with mechanized bucket systems capable of loading and unloading grain at industrial scale. The Buffalo Grain Elevator, completed in 1843, could store 55,000 bushels. Buffalo's grain trade in 1843 was less than 20,000 bushels annually. The elevator operated at partial capacity for over a decade. Chicago's first steam-powered grain elevator was built in 1848. Capacity, 80,000 bushels. Chicago's grain trade in 1848, negligible. The city wasn't yet a major shipping hub. But by 1860, Chicago had 20 grain elevators with a combined capacity of over 13 million bushels. The elevators were built before the grain arrived. Power grids follow the same sequence. In the 1880s, electric lighting systems were installed in cities across the U.S. and Europe. But the generating capacity consistently exceeded initial demand by a factor of 3 or more. New York's Pearl Street Station, opened in 1882, could generate 900 kilowatts. The initial customer base required fewer than 300 kilowatts. Thomas Edison had to offer free installations to increase usage. London's Deptford Power Station, completed in 1891, generated 10,000 kilowatts. London's electric demand in 1891 was roughly 3,000 kilowatts. The station was designed with expansion bays for additional turbines that wouldn't be needed until 1905. These weren't miscalculations. The engineers knew the immediate demand. They built for a future demand they somehow anticipated with precision. Whether this reflects inherited knowledge, coordinated planning, or something else entirely, the infrastructure itself remains. Stone aqueducts, canal locks, rail bridges, grain elevators, all built to specifications that exceeded the needs of their time. All appearing in the same 50-year window. All using similar construction techniques, materials, and design principles. And all becoming essential within 20 years of completion. The word Tartaria appears on European maps as early as the 13th century. It referred to the vast region of Central Asia, stretching from the Caspian Sea to the Pacific Ocean. The term was used by cartographers to denote the lands inhabited by Turkic and Mongol peoples, what medieval Europeans called Tartars. By the 18th century, Tartaria was a standard geographic designation. It appeared on maps published in London, Paris, Amsterdam, and St. Petersburg. The region was divided into categories: independent Tartary, Chinese Tartary, Muscovite Tartary. These weren't mythical lands. They were real territories with documented populations, trade routes, and political structures. By 1850, the term had largely disappeared from official cartography. The regions were redesignated under Russian, Chinese, and Ottoman administrative boundaries. The change coincided with the expansion of imperial record-keeping and the standardization of geographic nomenclature. What happened between 1850 and now is where the interpretations diverge. In the last 15 years, a modern reinterpretation has emerged primarily online. This version proposes that Tartaria wasn't just a geographic region but a global civilization, technologically advanced, architecturally sophisticated, and deliberately erased from history during the 19th century. The hydraulic systems, the canals, the oversized infrastructure. According to this interpretation, these weren't built by 19th century engineers. They were inherited from Tartaria and repurposed by the civilizations that followed. There are three main frameworks for understanding the evidence. The first is conventional history. The infrastructure was built by municipal governments and private investors during a period of rapid industrialization. The over-engineering reflects optimism, ambition, and access to cheap labor. City planners anticipated growth based on economic trends. Some projects succeeded. Others failed. The ones that succeeded appear prescient in hindsight, but they were simply bets that paid off. This interpretation is supported by city records, engineering documents, and funding ledgers. The names of the engineers are known. The construction contracts exist. The financial backers are documented. The second interpretation is technological inheritance. The hypothesis here is that certain construction techniques, architectural knowledge, and hydraulic engineering principles were transmitted from earlier, possibly much earlier, civilizations. This doesn't require a global empire. It suggests that knowledge was preserved and applied during the 19th century, either consciously or unconsciously, leading to the construction of infrastructure that mimicked older, more advanced systems. This would explain the architectural consistency. The repeating design elements in canal locks from England to Ohio. The nearly identical reservoir systems in cities separated by thousands of miles. The use of specific stonework patterns, hydraulic principles, and construction methods that don't appear before 1800 or after 1900. The third interpretation is deliberate coordination. This proposes that the infrastructure projects were part of a planned system, not by a lost civilization, but by a coordinated network of engineers, financiers, and governments working from a shared blueprint. The Tartaria framework, in this view, is a metaphor for centralized planning on a scale not acknowledged in official history. The evidence for this includes the timing. Between 1810 and 1870, infrastructure projects across the United States, Britain, France, and Germany followed nearly identical schedules. Canals, rail lines, water systems, and grain storage facilities were all built in the same compressed period, often using the same contractors, engineers, and financiers. The administrative structures were also similar: public-private partnerships, municipal bonds, state charters. These financial mechanisms appeared almost simultaneously in cities that had no direct communication. All three interpretations are plausible. None can be definitively proven with the available evidence. What remains are the structures themselves. In 1816, the year without a summer, global temperatures dropped due to the eruption of Mount Tambora. Crops failed across Europe and North America. Famine spread. Migration increased. In the years immediately following, infrastructure construction accelerated. The Erie Canal was proposed in 1817. The Bridgewater Canal extensions began in 1819. Major urban water systems were approved in Philadelphia, Boston, and New York between 1817 and 1820. The sequence suggests a response to crisis. But the scale of the response, the engineering ambition, the financial commitment, the coordinated effort across multiple nations, implies a level of preparation that doesn't fit the narrative of improvised recovery. The infrastructure was too large, too precise, and too uniformly distributed to be a reactive measure. Whether that preparation came from inherited knowledge, coordinated planning, or conventional foresight is the question that remains unanswered. The term Tartaria, in this context, isn't a claim about a specific empire. It's a placeholder for the possibility that the 19th century inherited more than we've been taught. Not secrets, not forbidden knowledge, just infrastructure. The canals are still there. The aqueducts still carry water. The grain elevators still stand in Buffalo and Chicago, most of them converted to museums or abandoned, but structurally intact. The hydraulic networks preceded the cities. That much is observable. The rest is interpretation. The evidence invites examination. The infrastructure invites questions. The timeline invites reconsideration of what we assume about the relationship between need and construction, between population and planning, between the 19th century and what came before. None of this erases the official record, complicates it, and maybe that's enough.